You trusted them. With your laughter, with your silence, with the parts of you you never showed anyone else. And then they lied. They left. And now, it's 2:37 a.m. You're not crying. You're just staring at the ceiling, empty. There's a woman in her late 50s. Her name doesn't matter because tonight she feels invisible anyway. She was married for 26 years, raised 2 kids, held his hand through chemo, stood beside him when his father died, prayed with him when their savings ran dry. Then one morning she opened his phone. She didn't want to snoop. She was just checking a calendar, but there it was, texts that weren't meant for her. He'd called someone else beautiful, the same way he used to call her. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just walked into the bathroom, locked the door. And for the first time in her life, she asked God, am I not enough to stay for? How can someone promise forever and then vanish with a single sentence? How can someone say, I'll never leave you, then leave when it's inconvenient? How can love turn into silence if you've ever laid in bed wondering if you were worth staying for? Don't go. What you hear next might be the whisper your heart's been begging for. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Psalm 27:10. For the Lord will not forsake his people. He will never abandon his inheritance. Psalm 94:14. People leave. People lie. People fall out of love, sometimes without warning, sometimes while still pretending to hold your hand. But God doesn't shift like shadows. He doesn't leave you in pieces and call it growth. He doesn't silence your pain. He enters it. He walks through the shattered hallway of your memory and lights a candle in the places they left cold. He doesn't erase what happened, but he writes himself into every forgotten corner until even the betrayal becomes a doorway to something softer. But if you're still awake, still listening, there's more. What comes next might be the first moment you've exhaled in weeks. Imagine your soul as a house, a quiet, dim house after the party ended too early. There's confetti on the floor, half-blown candles, music that still echoes in empty rooms. They left, but God walks in slowly, takes off his shoes, and instead of demanding you clean up, he sits with you on the floor. In silence, no pressure, just presence. He's not rushing you. He's not fixing the mess in one sermon. He's just with you, and sometimes that's enough to start breathing again. You are not too broken to be seen. You are not too abandoned to be held. You are not too forgotten to be found. Lord, for the one listening in the dark, who's been told they're not enough, not lovable, not worth it, whisper back louder than the silence they were left in. Sit with them. Just sit until they believe you never left. If something here made your chest feel less heavy, stay. Let this be your place to breathe again. We whisper healing here. And if this moment spoke to your soul, wait. There's another stillness coming, one where even the echo of betrayal is met with divine comfort. If you've ever felt discarded, unseen, unworthy, write these 5 words below. God still chooses me tonight. Not because you need likes, but because your soul needs truth to echo louder than memory. You made it through the first ache, but what if the silence after is where the real healing begins? Stay with us. Let the next whisper find you in the stillness. There are some nights when the bed feels too big. Not because you need more pillows, but because the person who promised to never leave did. And suddenly, silence has a voice, and it sounds like betrayal. He was a veteran, not of war, of heartbreak. A man in his early 70s living alone in the house he once built for forever. He met her when he was just 20, married by 23, retired at 65. He always thought they'd grow old side by side. But one winter evening, after a quiet dinner and a cup of tea, she told him she wasn't happy. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She just said she needed space. So she left and never really came back. Now he makes 2 cups of tea out of habit, but only drinks 1. How do you forgive someone who walked away without even slamming the door? How do you let go when part of you is still waiting for their footsteps on the porch? You've made it this far, so don't leave now. What's coming next might hold the answer your heart stopped asking for. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine. Isaiah 43:1, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Hebrews 13:5. You are not just a convenience, not a season, not someone to fill the in-between. God says you are His, not temporarily, not conditionally, not only when you're smiling or whole or unbroken. He calls you by name, the same name that may have been forgotten by others, but never by Him. He redeems what others discard. He restores what others damage. He remains when everyone else walks away. And if this feels too tender to hold alone, don't worry. The next whisper might be the balm your soul's been aching for. Think of your heart as a lighthouse, one that's weathered countless storms. Sometimes it flickers, sometimes it dims, but it was never meant to be bright for the world. It was meant to stay lit for the one who sees in the dark. And when others sail away, He stays anchored nearby, just waiting for your light to return. Even if it's faint, even if it's trembling, you are still known by name. You are still chosen. You are still His. God. To the one who feels like a forgotten afterthought tonight, wrap them in the warmth of being wanted, not out of duty, but out of delight. Let them feel chosen again. If something here touched a quiet place in you, let this space be your refuge. Whispers like this will always be here, waiting gently. And if being seen felt new tonight, wait until we speak to the places you've kept hidden, even from yourself. If this was for you, write this below. God still knows my name. Say it not to convince others, but to remind yourself of the truth they left behind. You've just begun to let the light in, but the deepest healing often comes when we sit long enough for the next scripture to reach the wounds we've hidden longest. Let's stay here just a little longer. It doesn't always come with a scream. Sometimes betrayal shows up in a whisper, a shift in their tone, a pause that's too long, and I'm fine. That means they've already left, even if their body's still in the room. She was a Sunday school teacher, 61, widowed young, but had rebuilt her life with a quiet strength. Years later, she met a man online. He seemed kind, thoughtful, patient. For 2 years, he called her God's gift. He even prayed with her at night. She let him into her savings, her home, her heart. But one morning, she woke up to find him gone. So was her jewelry, her checkbook, and every trace of the name he said was his. Even the amen he used to whisper was a lie. How do you trust God when someone used His name to hurt you? How do you open your heart again when the last person prayed with you before they took everything? Don't pull away just yet. What's coming next isn't religion, it's restoration. And it might be exactly what your soul needs to remember what trust feels like. The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. Psalm 9:9. The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. Zephaniah 3:17. There's a difference between people who use God's name and the God who heals in His own. One deceives, one defends. God does not sound like manipulation. He does not move like abandonment. His presence doesn't come to take, it comes to stay. He delights in you, not in spite of your broken trust, but because He sees the pieces and still calls them precious. Where others saw vulnerability as an opportunity to take God sees it as an invitation to heal. You don't have to carry the weight of what they did into every night. There's still more to uncover, more peace to find. Stay a little longer. Picture a garden, one that was trampled by someone who claimed to love it. The flowers are bent, the soil's torn, but underneath the roots still hold life. God kneels beside you in that garden, not asking why you let the wrong person in, but gently whispering, "Let me plant something new." You are not foolish for loving. You are not to blame for their betrayal. You are not beyond restoration. Father, for the soul who trusted and was tricked, would you remind them that you never impersonate healing? You are healing. Sit beside them tonight and tend to what they're too tired to touch. If your spirit exhaled just now, let this space be where you keep returning. No judgment, only gentle reminders that you're not alone here. And if tonight reminded you of what was lost, the next moment might reintroduce you to what was never taken your worth. If this was you, if your trust was twisted and left bruised, write these 5 words. God doesn't leave like them. Let it echo. Let it be your declaration in the dark. We've touched the wound tonight, but healing rarely happens all at once. Let the next whisper meet you where the ache still lingers, and slowly turn it into peace. You didn't plan to lose sleep tonight. You thought you'd already cried it out. You thought you were over them. But something about the stillness, the way your room feels too quiet, it brings it all back, doesn't it? He was a pastor's son, always taught that forgiveness was holy, that love endures, that God honors commitment. So when his wife started pulling away, he didn't panic. He prayed. When she became distant, he bought her flowers. When she said she needed space, he gave it. But one day, while picking up groceries, he saw her. Not alone, not confused. She was laughing in a booth with another man. His hand was on hers, the same way her hand used to rest on the Bible between them. He never confronted her. He just went home and stopped singing during worship for a while. Is it still betrayal if they didn't say the words out loud? How do I keep believing in love when even holy things feel hollow? Wait, don't walk away from this yet. What you're about to hear isn't a fix, it's a reminder that not all love leaves. Even if we are faithless, he remains faithful. 2 Timothy 2:13. I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. Jeremiah 31:3. I were unfaithful, but God's love doesn't mirror theirs. It doesn't flicker when you're hurting. It doesn't retreat when you doubt. You don't have to prove your worthiness to him because he never based his presence on your performance. He saw your heartbreak coming, and he stayed anyway. Not out of pity, but out of promise. You might think you've heard all this before, but maybe you haven't heard it like this. Not in the middle of your night, not when your heart was this tender. Imagine your soul as a broken vase, cracked by betrayal, chipped by silence. You thought it was useless, but God doesn't throw you away. He gathers every shard and holds them like stained glass, letting light shine through where the wounds once were. He doesn't hide the cracks, he redeems them. You are not your pain. You are not what they did. You are still held. Jesus, for the one who feels mocked by memories, whisper louder than the flashbacks. Hold them through the triggers. Stay through the grief they didn't expect tonight. If your spirit sighed just now, let this space be where you return, not for answers, but for presence. And if tonight reopened old wounds, the next breath might start closing them in peace. If this part found you, write God loves through the cracks. Let it be a declaration against the silence. The betrayal may echo, but healing echoes too. Just softer. Wait for the next whisper. It's coming. You're still here, and that says something. Because after everything you've carried, you could have turned this off. But part of you must believe that maybe tonight, healing is real. We just talked about love that leaves. But now, let's talk about the one who loves through the cracks. The kind of love that doesn't flinch when it sees your shadows. The kind that stays. He was the quiet one in the family. A man in his 60s who had never been loud, never caused trouble. His wife used to call him her rock, until she found someone more exciting, younger, spontaneous. Suddenly, being steady wasn't enough. She left with barely a suitcase, didn't even take the wedding photos. Now, every time he walks down the hallway, he passes those frames, frozen smiles from a time that no longer exists. What do you do with the memories when they don't match the reality anymore? How do you keep breathing? When every room in your house remembers her, if your walls still whisper what they said before they left. Then this next part might be the voice that finally quiets them. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. Psalm 34:17. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. God doesn't ask you to forget. He asks you to bring the pain to him even if it's still raw. Even if it's not pretty, he binds wounds not by removing the memory but by walking through it with you. He doesn't shame the ache, he stays with it until the very breath that once triggered you becomes the breath that steadies you. There's more. You haven't heard the verse that will settle something deeper yet, but it's coming. Stay here. Think of your grief like ocean waves. Some days it's calm. Some days it knocks you down without warning. But God doesn't ask you to swim alone. He steps into the water, doesn't pull you out too soon. He lets the waves teach you to float, and when you're tired, he carries you. Not away from the water, but through it. You are not drowning. You are not alone in this sea. You are not too far from shore. Father, for the ones surrounded by echoes, fill their silence with your presence. Let every memory they dread be gently rewritten by your nearness. If this moment gave you just one breath of relief, don't walk away. There's more of this waiting. Let us keep whispering with you. And if tonight's comfort reached something old inside you, tomorrow's whisper might be the one that helps you let go. If you needed this part tonight, type. He walks through the waves with me. Write it not for likes, but to remind your soul you are not alone in the water. We're not done. There's a quieter healing ahead. Let's walk there together, one whisper at a time. The hardest part isn't that they left. It's that you stayed. Stayed in the memories, stayed in the questions, stayed in the echo of I'll never leave you long after they already had. We spoke about the waves, the grief that comes in crashing silence. But there's something deeper now. A kind of loneliness that doesn't speak. It just lingers. She was a caretaker, not by profession, but by love. 38 years of cooking his meals, remembering his medications, folding his socks the way he liked. He never asked for much, but he also never thanked her. When he left quietly without a real goodbye, he told the kids she smothered him. Now she's the one eating dinner alone, hearing only the sound of her own breath and the clock she used to time his pills with. How do you forgive someone for making you feel like too much and not enough at the same time? How do you grieve someone who's still alive, just living a different life without you? If your soul has ever felt invisible, stay. This next whisper might be the first time you feel seen in days. You have kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your record? Psalm 56:8. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. Psalm 145:18. There's a God who counts the times you turn over in bed at night, who knows which tear belonged to anger and which came from love. He doesn't need you to hide your heartbreak to be holy. He invites the raw, undone, unedited version of you, and he doesn't look away. He writes it down, because nothing about your pain is wasted. Nothing is too small for him to honor. This might feel tender, but it's also sacred. What comes next may not be loud, but it could be the voice your heartbreak's been missing. Imagine your life as a room after a storm. Furniture out of place, windows broken, walls stained with watermarks of all that went wrong. Most people walk by too afraid to enter, but God, he steps inside with bare feet, doesn't flinch, doesn't rush. He sits with you in the wreckage and calls a place holy because you're still there. You are not too much. You are not unseen. You are not unworthy of tenderness. God, for the one still setting a place at the table. Even when they know it stays empty, would you sit in that chair tonight? Would you be the presence that turns silence into comfort? If you felt something ease inside you just now, don't leave. Let these soft words keep walking with you through the dark. And if tonight made you feel a little less invisible, the next whisper might help you reclaim the parts of you they tried to erase. If this part is poking to your silence, type, "God sits with me in the empty." Let it be more than a comment. Let it be a reminder you've been surviving quietly. But the next part of your healing story, it might be where surviving turns into breathing again. Stay. You don't have to speak out loud for your heart to be heard. And you don't have to be okay tonight for God to stay anyway. We just sat in the silence of an empty chair. But what if that very emptiness is where presence begins? He was a grandfather, raised a family with firm hands and soft prayers, watched his wife fade through cancer, but never let go of her hand. Years later, he fell in love again. It wasn't flashy, just gentle dinners and holding hands during TV commercials. She brought color back into his days. Then one day she stopped answering. No explanation, no goodbye, no emergency, just silence. His last message read, "Just checking if you're okay." It was never marked red. How do you mourn someone who walked away but didn't die? How do you grieve silence when no one gives you permission to? But if you're still waiting for closure, the next words might be the thread that helps you start stitching it yourself. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Psalm 23, 1-3. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Stillness isn't always loneliness. Sometimes it's where the healing begins. God doesn't just walk ahead of you. He walks into your quiet, into your "what did I do wrong?" into your "was I not enough?" And instead of answers, he offers rest. He restores what was broken. Not all at once, but deeply, quietly, like water soaking into parched ground. And if that felt too soft to trust just yet, there's more. Not louder, just deeper. Picture your soul as a field after harvest, stripped, bare, nothing left to offer. But God doesn't ask for fruit when you're in winter. He just walks the field, stays close. He doesn't ask you to bloom only to breathe, because even bare soil is sacred to him. You are not your silence. You are not forgotten in the stillness. You are not beyond restoration. Lord, for the one whose texts were never returned, whose messages float unread, be the response their soul needed. Wrap them in the stillness they were left in, and breathe peace into it. If something inside you felt less heavy just now, don't leave. This space was made for people like you, quiet, broken, and still beloved. And if tonight whispered to the places no one else sees, tomorrow's whisper may meet the ones you've hidden even from yourself. If you've ever waited for someone who never answered, write, God responds when silence won't. Let it echo back as truth. You've learned to sit in silence, but what if the next whisper teaches you how to hear joy again? We're not done, not even close. You've survived long enough in silence, but maybe tonight, you don't have to survive. Maybe tonight, you get to soften. We just talked about stillness, how God meets you there. But what if there's more than survival in the quiet? What if there's healing? She was strong, always had been. Single mother, 2 jobs, 3 kids. She didn't cry when her husband left, didn't cry when her eldest went to college. But last week at a red light, she heard a song they used to dance to, and suddenly she couldn't breathe. Right there in traffic with no one watching, she broke. And for the first time in years, she whispered, "God, I can't hold it anymore." What happens when being strong just isn't enough anymore? Who holds you when you've held everyone else for so long? If you're tired of holding it together, don't go. This next whisper might be the arms you didn't know were waiting. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you. Isaiah 66:13. Strength is sacred, but so is surrender. God doesn't admire your ability to keep everything hidden. He honors your honesty. He doesn't wait for you to get it all together. He bends low, lifts the weight off your shoulders, not with force, but with a whisper. You weren't made to carry this alone. You're allowed to fall apart in His arms. And if something just cracked inside you, let it. Because what's next might be where the rebuilding starts. Imagine your life like a tightly held jar, sealed shut, full of tears you never let out. Now, picture God not smashing it open, but gently unscrewing the lid, one turn at a time, giving your pain room to breathe until it no longer controls you, until you feel light again. You don't have to hold this alone. You don't have to be strong tonight. You don't have to stay silent. Jesus, for the one who's always been the strong one, would you become their softness tonight, their safety, their release? Let the pressure melt in your presence. If something in this moment felt like exhaling, stay with us. Let these whispers hold what you can't. And if tonight reminded you how exhausted you are, the next whisper might teach you how to rest. If tonight gave you space to feel again, write this below. I don't have to be strong alone. Say it so your soul remembers. You're not weak for needing rest. You're just human. And the next whisper might remind you that even God rested too. You're not too much, not too emotional, not too sensitive. You're just finally feeling what they told you to hide. Last time you loosened your grip, you stopped holding everything in. Now, let's breathe together in the space where pain turns into presence. He had always kept it together. Navy vet, hard hands, quiet dignity. He survived war, poverty, and the loss of a child, but nothing cut deeper than the day his wife said, "I don't love you the way I used to." No explosion, no affair, just erosion. And he didn't cry until a week later, when he found her mug still drying in the dish rack. How do you mourn love that didn't die suddenly, but faded while you were still standing in the room? If you've ever stood in the ruins of something that used to be sacred, stay. Because this next whisper might rebuild what no one else even saw collapse. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Orawanlo. Psalm 34:18. He gives beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Isaiah 61:3. God doesn't just patch up the ruins, He builds beauty from them. Where the world sees failure, He sees foundation. He gets close not just to fix, but to feel with you. He doesn't call your sadness weakness, he calls it human. And then he does the sacred work of breathing newness into the wreckage, not despite the pain, but through it. If you're wondering how to start again after so much loss, wait. The next image might help you see it differently. Imagine your heart as a cathedral once full of light and music and warmth. Then came the cracks, the falling stones, the silence. But God doesn't walk away. He steps inside, not to condemn the ruins, but to whisper through the dust, I still dwell here. You are not the ruins. You are not the reason it fell apart. You are still a dwelling place. God, for the ones surrounded by reminders of what used to be, whisper that they're not broken beyond beauty, that their story didn't end in the silence, that you still live in them. If this quiet moment steadied something inside you, come back. These whispers were made for nights like this, and if this part reminded you that sacred things can be rebuilt, the next whisper might show you how joy can still rise from the dust. If tonight touched something ruined inside you, write this below. God still dwells in the ruins. Say it not because it's easy, but because it's true. We've stood in the rubble. But the next whisper, it might be the first sound of rebuilding, one breath at a time. You weren't too much, they were too small to hold what you offered, and the love you gave, it wasn't wasted, even if they treated it like it was. We've stood in the ruins, but maybe now you're ready to let something holy rise from what was torn. She was a mother, faithful, gentle, always remembered. Birthdays, prayed before dinner, smiled even when exhausted. Her children grew up, moved out, but then they stopped calling, stopped coming back on holidays. One year, only 1 out of 3 even texted her on Christmas, so she started setting fewer places at the table, started learning how to wrap gifts for herself just to remember she mattered too. And one night she whispered, did I raise them wrong or just love them too quietly? How do you handle being forgotten by the ones you never forgot? What do you do with love that keeps giving when no one comes back for it? But if this feels familiar, the next words might not fix it, but they just might make the ache feel seen. Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has born? Though she may forget, I will not forget you. Isaiah 49:15. You are precious and honored in my sight, and I love you. Isaiah 43:4. Even if those you raised forget the way back to you, God never did. Your name is not an afterthought in his book. Your tenderness is not overlooked. He saw every dinner reheated, every voicemail left unheard, every silent prayer you said in the hallway after they left. And he's still whispering, I remember when they don't. You were never hard to love. If your heart is soft right now, let it stay soft. The next whisper might bring back the light in places you thought had gone cold. Imagine your soul like a lamp left on at the window, not because you're lost, but because you're still hoping someone remembers the way home. God sees the light, and sometimes he sits by the window with you. You are not forgotten. You are not too quiet to be heard. You are not hard to love. Lord, for the one who keeps loving without being loved back, let tonight be the moment they feel remembered by you, not in general, but by name. If this felt like it reached into a part of you no one else sees, stay with us. This isn't the end of the story. And if tonight echoed your loneliness, the next whisper might show you where God meets you when no one else shows up. If you needed this, write these 6 words God remembers when they forget me. Let it be the beginning of feeling visible again. You've held love that didn't return. But what if the next whisper shows you a kind of love that never leaves? They told you to move on, but they never asked what it cost you to stay. They saw your healing as silence, but you were just learning how to breathe again. We talked about being forgotten. Now, let's go deeper, to the place where your voice got buried. He was quiet. Not because he had nothing to say, but because every time he spoke, someone rolled their eyes. Too sensitive, too much. So he learned how to shrink. At work, at church, even at home. He once wrote a letter to his daughter, but tore it up before mailing it. He wasn't sure his words would matter to her anymore. They hadn't in years. What's the point of speaking if no one hears you? What do you do with love that never lands? But if you've ever felt voiceless, what comes next might remind you that your silence still speaks. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. Psalm 139:4. For the Lord hears the needy and does not despise his own people who are prisoners. On Psalm 69:33. God doesn't wait for you to find the perfect words. He hears what your heart wanted to say even when your voice trembled too much to speak it. Even when your text sat unsung, even when your prayers came out as sighs. He leans in, he listens to the part of you that others ignored. And he doesn't just understand, he responds. So if no one else ever told you, I hear you, you matter. Your pain is not invisible. Then let tonight be the first time you believe it. Say it to yourself right now, quietly. God hears what no one else sees. You're not voiceless. You've just been speaking in places that didn't know how to hold your heart. Let the next whisper give you back what they ignored. Imagine your soul like a handwritten letter, folded, carried, never opened. God doesn't toss it aside. He reads every line, even the smudges from your tears. He holds your letter to his chest as if it were poetry. You are heard. You are not too quiet for God. You still matter, Lord. For the one who stopped writing because no one replied, be the answer they have been waiting for. Even if it comes in stillness, even if it comes in tears. If this part felt like something finally found its way to you, don't walk away. There's more softness ahead. You don't have to go through this alone. And if tonight gave you back a little voice, the next whisper might remind you you're still allowed to use it. If this part gave words to what you couldn't say, write this below. God hears the silence I live in. Let it be the first sentence of your healing. You've been quiet long enough. Next time, let's talk about reclaiming the parts of you that were silenced not with volume, but with truth. There's a quiet kind of strength in choosing to stay open after the world gave you every reason to shut down. If you're still listening, maybe that strength is yours. You've been unheard, overlooked, pushed aside, but tonight something shifted. You let the silence speak. And now, it's time to reclaim what was buried in it. She was a friend everyone forgot to check on. The strong one, the dependable one, until one day she fainted at work. Not from sickness, but from carrying too much without rest. At the hospital, no emergency contact showed up. No one knew her favorite color. No one knew what brought her comfort. So she lay in a room, surrounded by people, but completely unknown. She whispered to herself, if I disappeared, would anyone notice? How do you exist loudly? When your pain lives in silence, how do you keep reaching when your hands keep coming back empty? But if that sounds like your story, then what's coming might give you something to hold on to, even if it's invisible. You are the God who sees me. Genesis 16:13, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Hebrews 13:5, you are not invisible to the one who formed you. You are not forgotten in the stillness. God didn't miss the moment you broke in the stairwell, didn't skip over the night you cried on the kitchen floor. He saw it all and stayed. You may have felt alone, but you've never actually been. There's more coming. Not more pain, but more presence. The next whisper may not just soothe you, it might awaken something sacred. Picture your soul as a locked diary, not because you had secrets, but because no one seemed to care what was inside. But God has the key. And when he opens it, he doesn't judge the pages, he reads everyone with reverence. You are not forgotten, you are not invisible, you are still known. Lord, for the one who's been too quiet for too long, would you speak where they've gone silent? Would you hold what others left unseen? If something in this moment made you feel less invisible, stay with us. This space was made for souls like yours. And if tonight gave voice to your silence, just wait. Because what comes next may show you that even the hidden parts of you were never unworthy of love. If this part reached your quiet, write these 5 words. He sees me even here. Let it echo inside until you believe it. Next time we'll step into the places you locked away, not to break them open, but to sit with them until they don't hurt as much. You don't have to earn the right to be seen. You already are, and you don't have to prove your pain for it to be honored. Last time we talked about being the one who was always there for others, but felt invisible yourself. Tonight, let's talk about something deeper, why that wound stays with you longer than most people understand. He was a widower, lost his wife 2 winters ago, but what hurt more was how quickly the world moved on. Neighbors stopped calling. Friends assumed he was adjusting, but he wasn't. He kept setting her slippers by the bed, kept buying her brand of tea, and one morning, he caught himself turning to tell her something. Before remembering, she wasn't there. He whispered to the silence, I'm still here, and I still don't know how to be without you. What do you do with a love that had no proper ending? Where do you place a presence that's gone, but hasn't left your heart? If you've ever mourned something that others forgot, the next part might finally validate what your heart has known all along. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Matthew 5:4. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Psalm 56:8. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. It lingers, and just because others stop asking doesn't mean God stops noticing. Your mourning is holy to him. He doesn't rush it. He joins it, not with cliche answers, but with presence, with gentleness, with comfort that honors what you've lost without demanding that you get over it. The next part might help you understand why some aches don't go away, but also why that's not always a bad thing. Think of grief like an old scar. It doesn't hurt every day, but it never fully disappears either. It becomes part of your story not because it owns you, but because it shaped the way you love. And God sees the whole picture, not just the pain, but the beauty it left behind. You are not behind. You are not too broken to be comforted. You are not grieving alone. Lord, for the one who still sets a second cup of tea, would you sit in the other chair tonight? Would you let them know they're not the only one who remembers? If you felt seen in this moment, this space is here for you. You don't have to walk these long nights alone. And if tonight whispered into your grief, the next video might help you hold the ache without letting it define you. Did you know? Over 70% of people grieving long-term say the most painful part is not the loss, but the feeling of being forgotten by the living. That's why spaces like this matter. If this part spoke to a place you haven't touched in a while, comment below, I'm grieving, but not alone. Let this space hold what the world rushed past. There's a way to keep loving even after they're gone. And in the next whisper, we'll walk gently into that. You made it this far, that means something. Even if no one clapped for your survival, heaven saw every step you took in silence. We just sat with grief, the kind the world forgets. But you didn't forget, and God didn't either. Now, it's time to speak to that ache. He kept a voicemail, just one, from the last time his daughter said, "I love you," before she disappeared into a world of addiction and silence. He played it every birthday, not to stay stuck, but to stay connected. One night, after replaying it for the 6th time, he whispered, "I don't need her to come back perfect. Just come back. What if the people I love never return? What if I'm the only one waiting, praying, hoping, and they never knock on the door again? If you're holding on to a door no one has walked through yet, stay. The next part might give your hand something else to hold. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him." Lamentations 3:25. Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. Psalm 126:5. God sees the waiting. He honors the holding on, but he also wants to give you something even if the ones you love never return. Peace, hope, a joy that doesn't depend on their repentance but on his presence. You're allowed to hope without breaking. You're allowed to rest even as you wait. You've carried so much, but you don't have to carry it out of this video alone. What comes next might be the breath your soul has been begging for. Picture your heart like a hallway with many doors, some closed, some never opened. God doesn't force them open, but he walks the hallway with you. And sometimes he helps you build a window where there used to be only walls. You don't wait alone. You don't hope in vain. You don't love without being loved. God. For the one who keeps lighting the porch light, hoping someone finds their way back, would you let them know they're not just someone's parent, partner, friend? They're also your beloved. If you felt held in this moment, subscribe quietly. Let this be the space that waits with you. And if tonight gave you courage to hope again, the next whisper may help you loosen your grip without letting go of your love. You're not the only one waiting. Millions do, but very few talk about it. Tonight, you didn't have to be one of the silent ones. If this part gave you the courage to keep hoping, type. Even if they never come back, I'm still loved. Let it mark your healing. Let it hold your ache. Next time, we'll talk about letting go of outcomes and learning to rest in love that never needed a reason to stay. You made it through, and maybe for the first time in a while, you didn't have to do it alone. We've walked through silence, betrayal, grief, abandonment, not to relive the pain, but to hold it gently, to let it breathe, to tell it, "You're not the end of me." There's a woman who listens to these whispers every night. She never comments, never subscribes, but last week she sent a message that simply said, "For the first time in 5 years, I didn't cry myself to sleep." And sometimes that's the miracle. Not that everything changes, but that something softens. What if this is as healed as I get? What if the ache never leaves completely? Then maybe healing isn't the absence of ache. Maybe it's the presence of love strong enough to sit with it. And surely I am with you always, even to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:20. In quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah 30:15. There will still be quiet nights, moments that sting, memories that come uninvited, but there will also be a steady presence, a whisper that never leaves, a God who sits with you not just on the mountaintop, but in the dark living room, in the late night bathroom mirror, in the kitchen while the tea kettle screams. You are not alone. You never were. And if this video was just a whisper, the next might be a hand, one that helps you take a step, not away from the pain, but toward the peace beneath it. Picture this space like a lantern in the night. It doesn't erase the dark, but it reminds you you're not walking through it blind. You are being guided even now. You are still here. You are still held. You are still healing. Lord, for the one who made it to the end of this whisper, let tonight be more than comfort. Let it be remembrance that they matter, that they're not invisible, that you're still with them, even here. If you felt something shift inside tonight, subscribe quietly. Not because you have to, but because you're allowed to be held. And if this whisper steadied your heart, the next one might help you breathe in the place you used to only break. More people cry themselves to sleep than ever admit it. But tonight, you didn't have to do that alone. If this video met you in the dark, type, "I'm still healing and still held." Let that be the benediction over your night. This was just one night, but there are more whispers to come. And maybe next time, we'll talk about the peace that doesn't depend on answers, just presence.